right, so Teaching Whites About Racism by Samuel Lopez and Melba Campos. Basically, the author Christine Sleeter talks about how she has a class where she teaches uh, white teachers about how race and ethnicity plays a big role in the learning environment. Our graphic organizer shows um, some of these issues. The first one, it talks about how it describes a process that has been used with white pre-service students to help them recognize the limits of what they know about social stratification so that they can begin to reconstruct what they already know. Um, Also, about 90% of the teaching population is white, and most teachers, as whites, are members of the dominant racial group. Um, while usually they'll deny that there's a significant racial structure because all they know is their own ethnicity and where they've been brought up, and usually they're raised around other white people, and the society is they only know it a certain way. Um, they construct alternative explanations resolving the contradiction by minimizing racism. They neutralize it, viewing racism as an individual prejudice and inequality as due mainly to cultural so-called deficiencies, and things like that. And as student populations become increasingly diverse in racial and cultural composition, and as the teaching force becomes increasingly white, interest in training teachers in multicultural education is growing. We have a timeline here where it's in the cartoon inside the actual article. It starts in 1776, where the right to vote was reserved for white males only, and it ends in 1995, where it has Newt Gingrich saying affirmative action for women and minorities. Well, that's just un-American, you know.
The article describes a process that has been used with white pre-service students to help them recognize the limits of what they know about social stratification. So they can begin to reconstruct what they know. Otherwise, they simply integrate information about race into the knowledge they already have, and in the process, distort it. The analogy students draw between racism and what they know about sexism, class, mobility, and the white ethnic experience tend to minimize the importance of race as they see it. About 90% of the teaching population is white, and most teachers, as whites, are members of the dominant racial group. Whites resentfully interpret civil rights laws and social interventions as people of color wanting special attention and privileges. Whites construct alternative explanations resolving the contradiction by minimizing racism. They neutralize it, viewing racism as individual prejudice and inequality as due mainly to cultural so-called deficiencies. While denying structural racism, whites usually spend their lives in white-dominated spheres, constructing an understanding of race and social equality from the vantage point. How do we explain who gets what? Rules for distribution: effort, ability, personal desire. It leads to reward.